Welcome to Brainthropology. Let's talk about our amazing brain and the issues that get us stuck. We all have those moments where life gets overwhelming. It can be related to injury or illness, or an issue with your kids, or just because life is crazy and we need a little help and encouragement. Our team of therapists, expert guests, and clients are here to deep dive into the topics that matter most. We will share information with our listeners that encourages, educates, and empowers.
This episode is brought to you by Galaxy Brain and Therapy Center, helping clients live their best lives by implementing strategies such as those discussed in this podcast. Galaxy Brain and Therapy Center is located in Ann Arbor, Michigan, serving southeastern Michigan for in-person and community-based services. Out-of-state virtual and teletherapy services available for OT, PT, speech, mental health, and mindfulness. Check out their website at galaxybraincenter.com.
Hi, everybody. This is Meg Scaling, host of Brainthropology, and I have two amazing guests in studio with me today. These guests are very dear to my heart and part of the reason why we do this podcast. So first, I want to introduce Shirley Ross. And Shirley Ross is not new to podcasting because she was a brave soul that shared her story on another podcast that we were guest host of. And in about 8 days' time, she had over 1,000 YouTube views. Shirley and I go back 20 years. She has worked really hard to get to where she's at, and she is going to talk about her journey today. Welcome, Shirley.
Thanks, Meg.
I also have in studio today John Spencer. And John Spencer and I have known each other for at least 5 years. And he has had an amazing journey and is willing to share his brave story with us as well today. Welcome, John.
Thank you.
Okay, so we like to start our podcast with a personal or professional positive. So my professional positive today is that I get to be here today with you two, and you two are just so special to me, and you make me laugh. And I think we're going to laugh together, so that's forecasting a positive. Shirley, do you want to share a positive?
My positive is this is my second podcast, and I am so much more relaxed. The sun is out. What could go wrong?
That's right. John, tell us a positive.
My positive is just being here and on there and having a fun time and making you guys laugh.
I love it. I can't wait. So we're going to start this podcast by talking to two people who have survived traumatic brain injuries. And we're going to talk about some of the symptoms that they had and what they really needed and still need in their journey for recovery. Sometimes I think family members know exactly what to do, and sometimes family members might not know what to do to help one of their loved ones. So I think if we can sit here and be vulnerable and be brave and talk about some of the issues that we've shared, me as a therapist and you two as people who have survived traumatic brain injury, and we can share your stories with people out there to help encourage them and empower them and help them to fight on. I love it, right?
Yes.
Okay, so in a few sentences, Shirley, can you tell us how old you were when you had your brain injury and how it happened?
I was 42 years old. I worked with the state, with juvenile delinquents. I have two daughters. At the time I got hurt, they were in 10th grade and 11th grade. So the struggle was real.
Yeah. And how did that injury happen? So you worked for the state and you worked with boys and girls that were in a delinquent center.
Yep.
And what happened?
We were in the dining room and the boys and the girls were eating together and a riot broke out. And so I was trying to help calm the riot. And in that process, I ended up getting thrown into a door frame and then into the hallway with cement blocks.
And that resulted in a traumatic brain injury.
Right.
that left you in a coma
Yes.
for approximately days or weeks.
I would say maybe 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. So you've come a long way. And that was about 25 years ago,
it was.
correct? Okay. John, you have a different story. So Shirley was a parent. She was a mother. She was in her career when that happened. And you have a much different story because your life was just beginning. Can you tell us about your story?
Yeah, my injury happened 10 days before my 19th birthday. I was a passenger in my own car going to work, me and my friend, and we were hit on my side of the car. It was scary.
So, Jonathan, when you were 19, you were at a very different phase of life. You were just starting your work career. You were working as a cook and you were hanging out with friends. And then you ended up in lifelong rehab. You have been in rehab for over 20 years. You're 40 years old now.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are some of the things that you couldn't do when you were first injured, John?
I couldn't walk. I couldn't, for a little bit, I couldn't always control my bladder. I always could control, but I couldn't control the bladder. I had to wear diapers, and thank God that came back to me over time, and that was really hard. I couldn't walk, and I was in a wheelchair, and I still use my wheelchair when I'm tired or when I take my shoes off because of a brace I wear on my one foot.
You had to learn how to get out of bed, how to walk, how to talk again, how to do your basic self-care, all of those things.
Yes.
Shirley, when you came out of a coma, you had a similar experience. You had to relearn how to do a lot of things as well. Can you tell me about some
Mine
of the
is
things?
a lot like John's because I couldn't remember anything. So I had to relearn how to walk. My speech was bad. My memory was bad. My memory was so bad that I couldn't remember anything. And so I pretty much stayed in my house. I didn't go anywhere. I didn't let people in.
And you had children to take care of.
I did.
And you had a hard time cooking. You had a hard time banking. You had a hard time going to a grocery store. You avoided as much as possible, probably sending your 16-year-olds off to the store to grab things. And they probably came home with a lot of junk food like most 16-year-olds would, right?
Yep. The girls pretty much took care of the house. And they did. I mean, they understood that I couldn't do it, so they automatically did it.
Why couldn't your accident be now? Because now all you got to do is pull up to the grocery store.
That's
they
true.
bring it out to you.
That's true.
I mean, I wish you didn't have an accident at all. But,
Right.
I mean, it would have been
easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some new strategies now.
Yeah.
Actually, when I was Shirley's therapist for many years, and we had to learn how to drive places without GPS back in the day. So, gosh, at least now we have GPS for directions.
Yeah. I don't even think we had cell phones. Or I didn't.
I don't think you did. I do think I got my first cell phone maybe right around the time I met you. Shirley, I'm going to ask you, how would you describe yourself before your brain injury? Or maybe even how would your friends describe you?
I think that I was one of the life of the party people. But in my job, I took it very serious. I went from being part-time to full-time to a supervisor. I did a lot of organizing and making out schedules so everybody got their rec and their exercise through the day. And I was really kind of social until I got hurt, and then I went totally the opposite way.
Yeah. I mean, I knew you back then, and I think you had a lot of friends, and you were organizing ropes courses and trips to
Right.
the Tigers game and all kinds of things. You
Yes.
were very social.
Yeah.
Right. Jonathan, how would you describe yourself before your car accident?
Very self-conscious. Did I say that
Yeah,
right?
self-conscious. Yeah.
Because, and not thinking for one thing, and doing stupid stuff, scared to, do certain things on my own.
Even before your accident, you were scared to do things on your own? I heard you were a little bit of a troublemaker.
But, I mean, I was breaking out of that because, you know, the funny thing, well, not funny, but the thing that got me started to break out of my shell was the fact that I had to be social.
Jonathan, I'm going to ask you, how would your friends describe you?
My friends before my accident would describe me as a chicken because I would be scared to stand up for myself.
So, Jonathan, you didn't have much of a voice, but you were a cook.
Yeah.
And you were still trying to figure yourself out. Shirley, I have a question for you. What did your support system look like after your injury? Who was part of your tribe? Who was your team?
I pretty much just let go of everything. I didn't want people to know how bad I was, and so I did the fake it till you make it routine. And so I didn't let people get close. And I think part of that is they didn't understand what I was going through. And I didn't want to talk about my issues. I didn't talk about my brain injury accident until like 2 months ago. So that's very freeing, and I can talk about anything now.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you were at a place where you were thinking, okay, when is this brain injury going to get better, right? Like I've got my life to live. I want to get back to work. I got to raise my kids. Like, come on, brain, let's go. And one thing we learn is that this is can be and typically is a lifelong injury that takes time. And you had a very severe brain injury, and you were doing everything you could to survive in the moment.
Right, because you come to the point, everything I was totally into sports. I was a coach, I was a ref, I played tennis. So all those things, because of the head injury, I couldn't do. And so if I couldn't do those things, then I thought I could do nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, I think I'm going to ask you that next question. So how did those relationships change after your brain injury?
I think people were uncomfortable asking me because back then, 25 years ago, traumatic brain injury wasn't as well known or understood. And so they weren't real sure how to help me. And so I rarely asked for help. And the people who did want to help me, I would tell them everything was okay until the actual depression set in. And then I got into a dark place.
Yeah. I think being vulnerable and being honest with yourself is the first step, like really looking at what is it I'm feeling and what is it that I really need.
Right.
And is there someone I can share this with?
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason why we're doing this today, because we really want to talk about how scary it is to tell people that we don't feel okay in our head and we're not remembering things we should. And we need help with things that we feel like we should be able to do on our own. And the difference between you and Jonathan is Jonathan had a lot of physical injuries that it was obvious. I mean, Jonathan walks with a walker and you were using a wheelchair, and your injuries weren't as obvious. So
Right.
if you looked the part, then why aren't you playing the part? Why aren't you getting back to work, Shirley? Come on now.
Yeah.
Why aren't
and
you
that's
doing
exactly
your own
how I
groceries?
felt. Because I actually was my job. I lived for that job. My thoughts were with the job. And so once I couldn't work at the training school anymore, I was left with nothing.
And when I met you, you barely left your house because, you know, we talked about how thinking was hard and all of that. But what we're going to talk about today is how you had so much sensory overload and anxiety and PTSD. There was so many layers of issues that were happening at the same time. John, at the time of your injury, you had a girlfriend, you had some friends, right? You were hanging out with friends from work. Did those friends stick around or did they leave after your injury?
I was with this lady that I thought we had a future together, but she stayed with me after my accident. But I was in a medical house and she was still with me. But I let her go. I said go because I didn't know I would get as better as I am now. Most of the time, they just went away. The ones I had right before my accident, the ones I knew when I was a little kid, those then I haven't talked to them for years, but I knew them when I was a little kid. Those people are coming around again. So, I mean, it's cool. It's just like the Lion King, the circle of life. It's kind of crazy. And that's crazy that I used a kid's movie to explain that, but it's true.
I love it because I think Shirley's experienced the very similar thing, that once you start telling your story, and John, you put yourself out there on Facebook and you have a TBI support group that you started, and you're very active on social media. Yeah. And once you put yourself out there and you are unashamed of where you've been in your journey and you're brave, people start coming around. Shirley, that happened to you.
That totally happened to me. Since that podcast and I told my story, people that I worked with have come around. My high school people have come around. My cousins, everybody that I left at arm's length have come around, and they were so inspired by the story that now they knew what I was going through and understood why I did what I did, but never did they judge me.
Yeah, because you were pushing them away just
Right.
to protect yourself.
Right.
So I think lesson number one to the listeners out there is after you have a brain injury, it's really natural for someone to try and hide their deficits and push people away. And it's not personal.
Right.
And take the time to ask the questions to find out how you might be able to help someone, because they're not going to reach out for help. They're really going to try and do it themselves.
Right.
So thinking about
And can I say something, Meg?
sure.
I have met two of my very best friends after my accident, and they both have head injuries. One of them I met at a therapy place that I was at, and she is one of my best friends. And uh, the other one he's in another facility, and I used to work with him at a sheltered workshop, and he comes to the Bible study I have, and he's my best friend. He's my brother.
That's amazing.
And I have so many other brain injured friends because of a camp that I go to in May.
What's the camp called?
Camp Barefoot, but it's at the Fowler Center
Camp Barefoot.
in
Awesome.
in Mayville.
We can put that in the show notes in case anyone wants to look into Camp Barefoot. John, when we were prepping for this, you talked a lot about therapists that were in your life and how when you have a brain injury, sometimes your friends might fall away here and there, but you really do develop good relationships, and you've had the pleasure and privilege of benefiting from auto no fault benefits in the state of Michigan, which have given you the ability to have physical therapy and speech therapy and occupational therapy and recreational therapy. And you've really flourished in that therapy world and made a lot of good friends. And so thank you to the Michigan Auto No Fault system. And that's another podcast for another day, because that system is changing and has changed. And there are people that don't have access to that anymore.
Right.
And there are people listening that are outside of the state of Michigan that might be saying, I only got 6 visits of therapy, or my therapy was done in a matter of a month or 2. And to those people, I think we need to talk about how important it is to find a community and to be a part of a community, or to start a community. You know, if there's not one to go to, be brave like Shirley and like John and start a community for people who need people.
That's right, because a brain injury doesn't heal in 6 sessions. So it's like for the rest of your life. You learn things, and then you come to have many tools that you can use yourself. And so things may not be the way they were before, but you adjust that to how you can make things work.
Let's talk about that, because the world is different. And let's just talk about our sensory system. So when you have a brain injury, your thinking changes, your ability to make decisions quickly, to process, to speak quickly, to know what to say, all of that changes. So
Right.
How did your thinking change, and what were some of the things that were difficult for you to do?
Pretty much everything out in the community was hard for me to do. Shopping was hard. There was too many people. If people would come up behind me, I would panic. I often had panic attacks right in stores. Shopping in the mall was basically the same thing. Too many people, too much chaos around me. I just, in the beginning, just needed quiet.
And your functional memory was not that great. So being able to answer a question on the telephone when someone says, okay, what's your zip code? What's your address? What's your phone number? Recalling things that you should know.
Right.
And then you'd freeze. And then you're afraid of looking what?
I was afraid of looking stupid to people.
Afraid of looking like you had a brain injury or looking like something's wrong.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And then you had issues with money, knowing if something was $4.50 to be able to round up to $5 or pay with a 10. So what did you do? What was your strategy?
I would always carry 20s. So I pretty much knew what I ate and what I needed would be under $20. And so that's what I did. When I ran out of 20s, I would take my change to the bank and get more 20s.
Yeah.
But it worked.
Can I have 80?
How many 20s is that?
8.
Not quite. Close. Not,
And 80 bucks.
$80 is
40, so 4.
There you go.
Sorry,
There you
sorry.
go.
See, I don't even know.
Yeah, but see, my brain has started to come together, and so I can figure that out now.
I mean, I can too, and I feel really stupid because I forgot, and I'm good with money because I love money, and yeah.
It's all right.
I was just thinking of tattoo money.
Well, me too.
You have lots of tattoos, and that is what you spend your money on, isn't it?
Yeah.
They're beautiful.
And I just adore his tattoos, and so I wanted to be an equal with John, and so I got my own tattoos.
Shirley's sporting a tattoo. If you are listening to this on a podcast, Shirley is sporting, I don't know, Amazon tattoo sleeves.
They are.
They are, yeah. And they're amazing.
A lot cheaper than the regular tattoos.
Yeah, they are.
Oh, I love that. So, John, you had changes in your brain that affected your thinking and your processing time and your ability to speak quickly
And my physical.
and move quickly. Yeah, you move a little bit slower. Yeah. And what are some of the things that are difficult navigating in the world because of this?
My memory plays a big part in my memory plays a huge part. If I'm dropped off somewhere, I can remember where I'm dropped off, but if I go a long way around, like different places, I may not, maybe not be able to figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying.
I do know what you're saying. And the technical term for that is called topographical orientation. It's that ability to be able to go into a store, go around the store, and then know how to get back out of it, or go down the street and go do something and be able to get back to your car.
I would like to, I like to go downtown Ann Arbor, and walk around, just on a summer day, enjoy the restaurants and shopping and stuff and tattoos stuff, and but if I'm by myself, which I probably wouldn't be, but anyway, I may not be able to get back to a certain place to get a ride unless my ride came to where I was.
Right. So, I think you're in a situation where you were 19 when you were injured, and you have, for the most part, had someone with you all the time, kind of helping you through these different situations and helping you navigate. Yeah. And you've talked before that you just are dying for some independence, and that's something that's you're yearning for.
Yeah.
And Shirley, you've had kind of the opposite, where you've had to be thrown into a world that you felt like you weren't ready for because you didn't have anyone to take care of you, and
and I wouldn't let people take care of me,
and you had children that you had to take care of. So in the world, that the sensory stimulation can just be overwhelming. Think about something that was really visually overstimulating for you, because the visual system is one that after a brain injury often gets overstimulated. What were some things that were difficult for you visually?
There were several. One that probably was the worst was at the airport, and you go through a tunnel and the lights are all blinking every which way.
Yeah.
And I would literally, my mind would go crazy and I would panic. So other things I think is part of the PTSD is if people run up behind me, I panic. People coming towards me, ambulances, any high, like, trauma.
Something that reminds you of the day of your accident, right? So ambulances, sirens, that flashing lights, even bright lights. A lot of people will complain that it's too bright and they need to wear sunglasses, even on the inside. Mm-hmm. Shirley, you're a rehab tech at Galaxy, and
so what you're saying is I have to walk up to you sideways.
That's right. You have to walk beside me, yes.
You have to come up sideways and just nudge her on the side, because coming from the back or the front is too hard. That's a good one, John. I love
practice that, John.
Okay.
It's that side bump that you see players do after a touchdown to jump up and side bump. I love it. Yeah, I mean, I think I remember doing therapy with you, and we were on a bridge, and just the water going underneath us, the movement of the water was hard.
Mm-hmm. Is when, like, when I look down over balconies or something, I mean, it's freaky. It is so freaky. And there's a bridge in Milan that I got to walk over to get downtown, and there's a waterfall, and of course I looked over just to see if I could, and I looked over it and to see the waterfall, and it's really weird. It does something to my eyes and head, and because I'm so tall, it's like, it scares me, because it's like, oh my goodness, I'm gonna fall,
Yeah, you talked about actually when you were first injured, how when you were in a wheelchair and you would look at the floor, that the carpet would bother you.
Yeah.
Can you describe that?
Yeah, I don't know where I was, but I would go into places. Did I say I was in a wheelchair or was I walking? I don't remember. Either one. I'd go into places sometimes, and the carpet would be a design or something fancy. Yeah, it'd be nice, but it would totally freak me out. It would be hard to walk on, so bright and different colors and designs.
How would it make you feel on the inside?
it made me dizzy, and it would just do itself to my head.
It probably made your eyes even go back and
Yeah,
forth.
it made me queasy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
so
the
I
word.
think those visual sensitivities are real, and someone who's had a brain
Yeah.
injury is going to have those sensitivities that family members need to be aware of. I think, Shirley, you also needed prism glasses because your eyes changed and you had something called vertical heterophoria, but you needed prism in your glasses to help you be able to have better depth perception and see things different.
And balance. I remember it helps so much with balance.
That's right. So we talked about the vision system a little bit. What do you think, and you know this from being a rehab tech, what do you think people need to help calm their visual system? What would help in a situation if you were visually overstimulated? What's something, Shirley, that you think helps?
I think probably the easiest that takes nothing is just deep breaths. Sometimes look down and away from the situation. And today, actually, we had an example of that. We were eating outside, and the car alarm came off, and my body started to react. And the first thing, I just started real deep breathing and got through it, where before I learned that technique, that would be all I could do that day.
Yeah. So you were sitting outside at a restaurant, and you were facing the parking lot, and you could see cars going back and forth. And I think when you are visually overstimulated, some of the strategies that family members and friends can use are to make sure that you reduce that visual stimulation. So make sure that when you're in a restaurant, you're sitting somewhere that you don't have people coming from behind to surprise you or coming right at you, or you're not standing right near the line that's always moving. You know, if you're at a Panera and you're sitting and you're watching this moving line of people.
And by the kitchen where all the pots and pans, anything that's sudden would set me off.
Yeah. So I think some of the strategies that we've used is to sit somewhere, whether it's in a restaurant or outside, where you can see what's coming and going. Mm-hmm. If you're in a place of business, that you know where the door's at, you know how to get out. Maybe you know where the restroom is if you need a quiet place to go and just kind of take a few breaths and get out of the noise or get out of the commotion. And if you have a family member that has a brain injury, really read the situation, pay attention, because you can probably see when someone's starting to feel uncomfortable, and they might not be able to say, you know, moving people are bothering me, or for whatever reason, I'm just really overstimulated. But you can read the situation and say, hey, do you want to switch chairs with me? Or, hey, do you want to try and sit at this table over here? That might be better. And practice being in different chairs.
Right.
So we had that today. So we sat down, and we were at this restaurant, and we practiced sitting in different seats, because I had one seat and you had the other, and we were kind of talking about this. And I said, well, what happens when we switch seats? Because what I'm looking at is kind of a peaceful scene, and what you're looking at is traffic moving. Mm-hmm. And how did you feel? You felt different.
I did. It's like everything in my system calmed down because I couldn't see the traffic. It was a quieter side for somehow, but it totally made a difference.
And that stuff makes a difference. And it might make the difference between someone being able to go out and not go out. So maybe Starbucks at 8 a.m. isn't the greatest time to do it, but maybe at 1 or 2 in the afternoon when it's quieter and there's not as many people in, that's the time to try it. And it's kind of taking those baby steps and looking at the environment and seeing what you can do to reduce the stimulation.
Right.
So we talked about vision. Let's talk a little bit about that noise, because you've talked about coming and going and loud noises, and how those loud noises bring on some of the PTSD and that startle effect. Mm-hmm. What are some scenarios or situations you've been in where noises are really hard and they almost make you not want to go to those places?
Well, it used to be, I thought I was going to be a basketball coach. until I realized that the whistles would be going, the buzzers would be going. And so I knew that I couldn't handle that job, along with you telling me I couldn't handle that job.
Loud conversations or conversations where everyone's talking. Jonathan, when I asked you this question earlier and I said, what are some sounds that bother you? You said kids. Can you explain that?
They're loud and just aggravating, very aggravating. I can't explain it. It just, I was a kid. We all were kids, but I mean, I just can't stand it.
Is it, you think it's the tone of their voice that they're talking in higher pitched, or that they're maybe yelling or crying or laughing, or what is it?
Yeah, that's it.
All of that.
Yeah, all of it. It's just, I mean, they're cute. I admit that. I mean, I like them. They're cute. If they're related to me, and even if they're not related to me, I love them. I mean, they're God give to us, but I mean,
I get it,
yeah,
right? I have kids, and I have nieces, and I have nephews. And
I love them, but they can go.
so we're going to do a quick kind of flash question where I'm going to say a scene, and you're going to tell me a word or two that comes to mind when you think about that setting and that scene. Because I know that when you're first injured, you had to get back into the real world. And for you, Shirley, you had to get back into the real world before you were ready. And for you, Jonathan, you were itching to get back into the world and like really trying to have some independence, because I think you had people managing you and parenting you and kind of overseeing all of your activities for a long time. So it's interesting when we talked about this, you guys have really different experiences, because you were itching. When I said the mall, you're like, I love it. And when I said the mall, Shirley said what?
It drove me crazy. It was chaos everywhere. I couldn't even think. I couldn't look straight.
Yeah. And because you had to do it independently, and you could just go and shop, and you had someone saying, yep, spend the money or don't spend the money, and I'll get you in and I'll get you out. And you didn't have to keep yourself safe in those situations. You always had someone with you.
I have a job, and I have to work for my money, and well, just like everybody else. But I mean, I finally understand that money don't grow on trees. That sucks. If anybody finds a money tree, let me know.
I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you, because you like to shop. All right, so let's play this game. All right, Shirley, I'm going to ask you first, and then I'll go to John. Shirley, what words come to mind when I say family gatherings?
Oh my God. Anxiety, total anxiety and stress. And because there's too many conversations going on at once. And so I just kind of sit back and withdraw from family things.
Okay. What about a basketball game?
I can't even go. Even though I want to, I'm a little bit better, but at first I couldn't. Too many loud noises.
What about restaurants?
In restaurants, I did not even know how to order. I would either whoever I was with would order for me, or I would order the same thing every single time.
Strategy for that, we actually came up with like your favorite foods at all the different restaurants, and we put them on a little laminated note card that you could have in your purse. So wherever you went, you could actually order what you wanted.
Yep.
So for family members out there, that's a good strategy.
Yep.
What words do you think of when you think of the grocery store?
Oh my God. Number one, I didn't cook. Number two, I didn't want to eat. And it's like, why am I in the grocery store? And so I try to figure out different things that I might want to eat. And by the time I got through the salad section, I was exhausted, and I'd walk out and not pay for anything. I'd leave my cart full of everything I picked out.
Yeah. That happened too many times.
Too many times.
And then you thought you had food, but you didn't, and you took that whole time to shop, and you had just left it.
Yeah, because I thought I had went shopping. I just forgot that I left the cart.
Because you were overwhelmed.
Yep.
Too many decisions. I think decision making is really hard for people with a brain injury, and there's a lot of decisions to make in a grocery store.
Yes.
Actually, we had a strategy for that. Do you remember what that strategy was?
Like put one apple in a cart.
Well,
and then leave the cart.
Well, that was practice when we were practicing being in the store. But the strategy, do you remember I made a keychain for you?
Oh yeah.
What did that keychain
That
say?
keychain said, "Whatever is in your right hand, buy that."
That's right.
With the one in the left hand down.
Yeah.
Don't buy that.
Because you would walk out of the store with nothing because you were like, do I get this or that? This or that? And you were paralyzed by this fear of making the wrong decision. So the keychain said, buy what's in your right hand.
Yep. I still have that keychain.
Love it. Okay. All right. Tell me what you think about when you think of a parking lot.
The parking lot is very overwhelming. So thank God I have the disabled license plate. And so I always park in disabled. So even if I can't find the car, I can tell somebody that it's in the disabled part. And now with the key fobs, I press that and the lights go on the car. So that's how I find my way.
It's a good strategy. What about school? Your kids were in high school. What happened when you had to go into the school?
I basically didn't go into the school. Number one, because it was too uncomfortable for me and I didn't want to embarrass my kids.
Airport. You've been to an airport since then. We've worked on getting through an airport and using Quick Park, and that was part of your therapy. Even though you can do it now, how do you feel in an airport?
Well, I was so stubborn before. I wanted to do everything myself, even though there was an easier way. And I've come to the conclusion the easiest way to get to where I need to be and on the plane is to just get wheelchair assistance. And they take care of you. They take you where you need to be. And it's just so much easier. There's no stress, actually. They come and get me. They take me where I need to be. And in layovers, they come and get me. They take me where I need to be.
Because to pause our game for a second, you definitely were that stubborn person that, in a good way though, you wanted your brain to get better. You wanted to learn the skills. You wanted to do it yourself. You wanted to be independent. So we worked on that to the point where you could actually find your gait. You could get there yourself. But in the process of doing that, you spent so much energy.
Yeah.
Could you enjoy your vacation?
No, so I was so tired by the time that I was through flying that I had to rest when I got to visit my kids.
Yeah. And that, I think you had to learn that the hard way a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, maybe the third time, I'm like, can you please just do it the easy way?
And there is a big difference.
So how's that stress? You said there's a lot of stress.
There is a lot of stress. And once you get in that stressed out mood, it like paralyzes. You can't even move through that.
Yeah. And there's an easier way to do things. And sometimes, and all the times actually, once you have a brain injury or any kind of injury, you might have to do things different, and that's okay. You don't have to do it the same way everyone else does it.
Right. And I learned that. And so with our clients, I can pick that out in a second. I can tell by their face, I can tell if they're tapping their feet that they're stressed. They need a break. They need a glass of water.
Maybe they just need to
or
laugh.
coffee.
Or a coffee.
John always needs a coffee. That's his go-to.
Yeah.
I have two more for you. Vacation. Have you been on a vacation?
I have not been on a vacation. I go like long weekends to my kids' house because I think planning a vacation is still too overwhelming for me. I like my safe place. That's my house. That's my car. That's working at Galaxy. So I'm okay without a vacation.
If someone else planned a vacation and all you had to do was show up and you had a cabana boy kind of waving you and bringing you drinks and helping you get back to wherever your cabana was, and you got to sit on a beach, would you like that? Or is being in unknown places still uncomfortable?
I think being in unknown places, because I'm kind of like a robot. Everything has to be the same.
You could
So
do
that
that,
I can
for
push-
me, Meg.
Your turn's next. You're going to have your vacation planned, right?
Yeah.
And so everyone's different.
Yeah,
you know?
everyone's
And
different.
I've been trying to encourage you to go on vacation because I think if you were to actually try it and kind of take baby steps towards it, I think you'd like it. But when you're ready, you're ready. And
Yeah.
You've not been ready yet.
Nope, not yet.
And last question, what do you think of when you think of the bank?
Money.
No, the bank is actually my friend now, because I actually opened up to my person there and told her I had a hard time. And so she knows that when she sees me, and she talks me through everything.
But before that, before you advocated for yourself, and that took bravery. It took bravery to go into your bank and say, if you wonder why I've been getting 20s all these years, this is why. Right? It took bravery. And
Yes.
once you said that, the people in the bank just,
Yeah,
they care about you.
they do. People do care. Even though you think they don't, you think they're going to judge, they don't.
Yeah.
They don't.
Thank you for answering those questions and being vulnerable.
You're welcome, Meg.
John, I'm going to ask you a similar set of questions. What word or couple words do you think of when you think of family gatherings?
I think of be on my best behavior, and I hate sounding like I'm a kid when I'm 40 years old by that, but I have to, because I just can't take the stimulation, as I've said and you guys have said, and you know that.
Yeah, so you have to probably,
And I have to stay on Facebook or bring my headphones or Bluetooth so I can talk to my wife and just do that.
so when you think of family gatherings, you think of managing your overstimulation and
Yeah.
finding strategies.
Yeah.
All right, what about a basketball game?
Well, since I don't really care for sports, I don't know if I'd be at a basketball game, but I think I have went to a basketball game.
Do you think you would like it?
I don't know, probably because of the cheerleaders.
I knew you were going to say that. What do you think about when you think of restaurants?
I love them because I used to be a cook.
So they don't bother you at all?
No,
No stress in a restaurant?
no.
Good. What about a grocery store? Do you ever grocery shop?
Nah, I don't grocery shop because my aunt does all the cooking and stuff, because I don't go to the grocery store because if I did, I would buy all the stuff that I shouldn't be eating and stuff. That would not be good. I'd gain weight instead of losing, which I'm doing pretty good on that, and I'm losing now, so I'm gonna keep doing that.
Yeah, well, a little bit of self-awareness that
Yeah.
sometimes for you, when you're in those kind of situations, there's that impulsivity that want
Yeah.
to just buy stuff, whether it's good
Yeah.
for us or not.
Yeah.
And knowing that that's not always a
Right.
good place for you to be in
Right.
is good. The mall, when we said the mall, your eyes lit up. What makes you, how do you feel in the mall?
I feel freedom. It's a good place. My aunt takes me, and she stays in the mall or in the parking lot or whatever, and I go around in the store in the mall, and I get a time of freedom by myself, and it is cool. She's close by if I need her, and it is cool. It's a sense of freedom.
I love that. That's good. When you guys are in situations, and John, thank you for answering
Yeah.
those questions. When you're in situations where you feel anxious or you feel like the setting is over your head, what are some things that help you feel calm? Shirley, do you have any ideas of things that help
My
you feel calm?
go-to is always the deep breathing, or to just sit down. Sometimes in malls, there's places where you can sit and just sit by yourself, go off by yourself, and calm down.
You kind of talked about that a little bit, John, when you were in family settings, that you
Yeah.
use your social media
Yeah.
and your headphones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I been doing lately, I don't know if it ties with this or not, but maybe this is totally off subject. But what I've been doing lately is that I've been getting a little tired lately during the day, and I've been taking like little naps.
Welcome to the 40s.
And it's crazy. I mean, you turn 40 and all these things start happening.
I know, right? But that's a great strategy to take rest breaks. We actually have people do that at the clinic where they've worked their brain so hard, they go in a room and they rest a little bit before they leave. Mm-hmm. Shirley, you talked a little bit about kind of self-talk, keeping yourself calm and the things that you say to yourself in those situations. Give me an example of something you would do to talk yourself down.
I think I would, the deep breaths, and this will only last a little while. Please don't panic. And I turn to God sometimes, because there is a song where God says, "If you need me, call me." And I do vision that in my head.
Yeah.
So that's a big help.
I love that. I mean, I'm a faith-based person too, and I always feel like I'm not alone for that reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think that
It's all because of God. I'm alive. And it is because of Jesus that we're alive, And that is the purpose why we're here. We're here because of Jesus and his blood for us,
I think, John, that you have a really strong faith journey, and you've really made it evident by sharing that in your Facebook group. And I think being vulnerable about all sorts of things, and faith is definitely a vulnerable issue, helps you become who you are, and it helps you have the strength and the confidence to advocate for yourself and to continue to fight on and fight for your purpose and your journey and to keep fighting. And Shirley, that's something that you've had a repeated theme that you want people to know, is that life is worth fighting for and to keep going.
It definitely is. And it's been 5 years that I quit smoking, And what I learned from that is you definitely have to feed your brain. The more you have to eat constantly, whether you're hungry or not, because your brain needs healing power, and that is eating good meals. And the more you eat, the better you feel.
I had to quit smoking after my accident too, because my aunts sure as heck weren't gonna let me smoke.
You know, we could go on and talk about this for a long time, but I really think we need to wrap up our discussion by looking at two different things. One, I want you to make sure that you can both say something that you're really, really proud of. So I'm going to ask that question. And then the other question is, what do people need to know to help you? If there's any bit of advice you can give people whose loved one was recently diagnosed with a brain injury, what that would be. So let's start with that question. If there's anything that you could tell someone that would help them help you, what would that be? And Shirley, I know you mentioned something about people doing their research, like finding out about a brain injury.
Yeah, because it is new. Unless you're directly involved, you don't really know what brain injury is. And just with me and John, we're totally different. So you need to know what their needs are specifically, and then be aware of that, and always be compassionate. Some people are compassionate automatically, and some people have to learn compassion. But
yeah, you're right. And because the different parts of the brain affect different things. So so your frontal lobe and your occipital lobe were the main parts of your brain that were affected, which is why your decision making and thinking and balance and vision centers were affected. And John, you had your speech and language centers affected and your motor planning centers affected pretty significantly, which is why Shirley can talk faster than you, because that part of her brain was not damaged the same way yours was. So it's so important for family members to really find out what exactly does this brain injury mean for my loved one.
And to me, I mean, my voice sounds slower to everybody else. And to me, when I hear it on video, but to me, talking right now, hearing myself talk, besides all the breaks that I have to take, I sound the same as I did before my accident. To me, you know, but I hear myself and it's like, man, they got to hear that. Oh my goodness, you know.
We love hearing you, John. John, tell me something you are proud of.
Definitely Kim.
Who's Kim?
Kim's my wife. She is beautiful. She has cerebral palsy, and we met on a Christian site on the computer, and we've been together since 2016, and been married since 2017, and in our own way, and you know, we see each other when we can, because we don't live together. She lives in Livonia with her mother, and I live in Milan with my aunt. So we don't get to see each other much, but we talk to each other every day. We have prayed together since the first phone call. I talked to her the first day. I asked her to pray with me, and we prayed together, and we've been praying ever since, and we've been together, and we're going strong.
I love that. I'm proud of you for that, and I'm proud of you for lots of other things. I'm proud of you because you are an artist, and you've really made a mark for yourself in the Milan community, particularly at a favorite coffee shop.
Yeah.
What's your favorite coffee shop?
The Owl. It's in downtown Milan. I'm there Tuesday afternoons and Wednesday afternoons, and Saturdays I have a Bible study at 10 o'clock, and I usually stay there for a good part of the day on Saturdays.
John, you're a terrific person. You're a kind person. You make everyone laugh.
Thanks.
You are fun to be around. Everyone knows when you're around because you're smiling and you're asking to talk to your friends and you're getting yourself some coffee and you
get myself in trouble too.
Maybe getting yourself in trouble too, but your sense of humor and your spirit is so appreciated, and I'm proud of you for sharing your story. And I'm proud of you for just the efforts you make to connect with other people who have brain injuries. Very proud of you. Shirley, what are you proud of that you've overcome and accomplished?
I'm so proud that I felt the fear and I did it anyways. With all of the therapy, when I wanted to just end everything, I stuck it out, and now I'm living my best life. I'm earning my own money. I have a job, which I hadn't worked in 25 years. My girls are happy. I'm just proud that I can set an example to my kids. And I have one of my daughters is exactly like me, and she has said she's learned it all from me. So
I love it. I love it. And you've helped people so much who have had brain injuries. As a rehab tech, you also have helped your mom, and all the strategies that you've learned over the years. I'm just so proud of you for helping other people implement them. And again, I'm proud of you for telling your story for a second time. Long details of your story will be linked in the podcast so that people who want to hear your whole full story can do that. But being vulnerable and being willing to say, you know what? I was like that too. You've done that so many times when people come into the clinic and you tell them, well, do you know I had a brain injury too? And what do they say?
You're kidding me. And then I would explain what I knew they were feeling, and they would go, how did you know that? How did you know that? So everything just fell in line. I'm better. I'm the best I've ever been. And I do care about the clients. And I love my job, basically.
Yeah, yeah. And so to everyone out there who is listening to this, who has a brain injury, what would you tell them?
Never give up. And to remember that when you're in therapy, you also have to do the same thing at home, because you can't recover with only 2 days of therapy. It's an ongoing thing, and you may not see results right away, but eventually you do, because a head injury isn't a quick fix.
That's right. Jonathan, what would you tell someone who was recently diagnosed with a head injury? What encouragement would you give them?
Yeah, don't give up.
Don't give up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't give up.
There's a lot of laughter to be had.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Well, I want to thank both of you for being on this show with us and sharing your stories and being a great support for each other even. I know that you two have developed a friendship over the years. And we really hope that our listening audience feels like they can reach out to us. So if you were inspired by anything that Shirley or John said, and you would like us to talk about topics that matter to you or topics that you're struggling with, make sure that you log on to our podcast website and also email us at brainthropology@gmail.com and connect with us, because we'd love to hear from you. And Shirley and John would love to hear feedback on how awesome they did, and kudos on being brave, because bravery is something that takes courage. Oh, John wants to say also, John has a Facebook page. And to follow John, you can go to Christian TBI Survivor on Facebook, and you will find him there as well. I, again, thank both of you, and I really appreciate you both being here. I'm going to ask you if you want to both, together with me, say our motto. Be courageous and move forward in your day with hope, joy, and purpose. Thanks, everybody.
Yay!
While we love what we do and are as passionate as they come, the information on this podcast and discussion is for educational purposes only and should not replace professional medical advice. Please consult your own healthcare provider if you are seeking medical advice, diagnoses, or treatment for you or anyone else. We do our very best to provide correct information, but please understand science and medicine is ever-changing. We welcome feedback, comments, suggestions, or correction of errors. This disclaimer applies to any guest or contributors to the podcast or blog.